Welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by Texas head coach Sean Miller. And Sean, welcome. Sean, how would you describe the year you spent between Arizona and Xavier?
It was a year of a lot of thought, reflection. There were good times and bad, all with it, rolled up in one. But the one part of it that I can really point towards, John, from a realistic perspective, is a lot of time has moved on since then. Is it was the best thing that ever happened to me when it comes to just you know being able to move forward in a really positive way. You're a part of a team, and I know you've heard coaches or players say this over the years, regardless of sport. But in my case, my journey with basketball started at a very young age, younger than most. 6 years old, 7 years old. I'm not saying I was drop dead serious about the game, but pretty close to being that. Just a son of a coach. And so if you do the track record on that, that's a lot of different teams and winters where a college basketball season, you're attached to people,
Right.
teammates, coaches, winning, losing, all these events. And all of a sudden you don't have that. It takes you back. But I guess I'm proud of myself from the perspective of that year, very productive when it came to studying basketball, thinking about basketball, and when your time came, if it would come for me, that I would be better, think differently, and really move in a very positive direction. And I really feel like a lot of those things happened simply because of that time I had.
Now, when you came back to Xavier in 2022, you had a very deep philosophical perspective talking about the gratefulness you had for the job and talking about the fact that regardless of how many games you won or lost, you were still a husband and a father and a brother. I'm curious, do you still have that perspective 4 years back with 2 trips to the Sweet 16 during that span?
For sure. Back to that year off, I think it makes you reflect and see things differently, and makes you appreciate life. You don't have to go undercover. So,
Hmm.
like, in other words, you're this one completely different person when you go to the court and you're coaching. You come home and then you have to flip. There can be like you can be good at both. You can do both. You can enjoy life. Not every loss is death. I would have been guilty for that, where you lose and it's not good. You win, it's a relief. Well, that takes the joy not only out of it for yourself, but those that are around you, even your own players, your family, etc. So it's really back to your first question. How do you gain a better perspective? Sometimes life has to change for you first, and then the perspective follows. But I would say I'm in the same place. I think the other part is, you have to be careful in, as a coach, chasing the results.
Yeah.
I think that's, you learn that over time. When you're younger, it's about accomplishment. It's about, striving for things. But as you grow older, you start to realize, like, the process is number one, what you have to love. And in the process is what you have to perfect. Be better at your everyday, be better at things that are going to allow what you do to have better results, right? So, and I say that because chasing a national championship or Final Four, that's a bullseye that not a lot of people get to.
Right.
So, I think if you're fixated just on that, you start to get off track of what is my best route to getting it, to winning it, to being a part of it, to have the program that I'm in charge of, being in a Final Four. Perfect your process. Be more process driven than worrying about what you have or haven't done. I would like to think that over time, all of us get a little better in that area.
I remember coming out to Arizona in 2013 to do an interview with you, and I asked you, how often do you think about going to the Final Four? And you said probably every 10 minutes. How often in
Yeah,
2026 does Sean Miller think about going to the Final Four?
right. And that my response wasn't a good one. It was honest, but it really wasn't a good one because it's really what inevitably can do you in. Again, you're fixated on the result, something that is a byproduct of your everyday, your staff, your team, who you are, the perfection of practice and all the different things that are so meaningful towards the end result of winning a championship. And when you start to reflect on, the end, and you can't do both. You're now not paying attention to the details of what you do every day. And so I think that if I think about things every 10 minutes, John, I'm still consumed with the game of basketball. I try to focus more on what is it that we're doing and how can we be better at it. And I think that's a much healthier approach towards getting to the end result.
How does being the head coach at Texas compare to being at the head coach at Xavier, Arizona?
These questions you have are amazing. I mean, what do you, I mean, how do you prepare for this interview? Jesus. Uh, so they're all different. Every place that I've coached at has been different. I'm very grateful and blessed because all three places that I've been at have been great to me, and I've enjoyed my time. I've enjoyed the players that I've coached, the support that we had. I'll talk to you about Texas because that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been at a place, and very few people have been at a place that you can compare Texas to.
Mm-hmm.
The state capital of the state of Texas, the growth and the world class nature of the city itself. It's the 11th largest city in America. People don't really think about that when you think of Austin. The university itself, there's over 600,000 living alumni around the world. That's a powerful number. So many of them have gone on to do great things. It's changed the world type of things. It's happened here. So when you're a part of it, I think you feel that nature, that high support, that world class, um, the world class nature of things in general, the place you live, the campus that you're on. But the last part of it is the leadership on this campus and at the University of Texas, John, is amazing. The alignment,
Mm-hmm.
the cooperation. Everybody is pointed in the same direction. And Chris Del Conte, who's our athletic director, I think's the best in the business at what he does. It's amazing how he has taken on all sports here and made us one. It's everybody pulls for each other. Everybody's striving, in my estimation, to win a national championship at their respective sports. And I think the camaraderie and the family nature, combined with some of the things I've already talked about, it makes Texas just a really extraordinary place to coach at, to be a part of. I'm grateful to be here.
And you had an extraordinary start to your tenure at Texas last season, leading the Longhorns to the Sweet 16. Sean, the NCAA tournament can make a great season mediocre or a mediocre season great.
You're right.
Considering where you were a couple of days before Selection Sunday and the way last season played out, how gratifying was it to go through what you went through during the final 2 weeks of the season?
Here's what I learned this past year, that if you ever had a doubt on the importance and the energy and the focus of March Madness in the game of college basketball, like, I got the answer loud and clear
Yeah.
because you do this long enough. You've been on both sides of that, where from the very start, early November until the last game of the year, you were one of America's best. Wins, analytics, accomplishments. But, the focus in our game, in this sport, is about being in the tournament and being able to have those magical moments and advance and achieve and go towards a Final Four national championship. So, no doubt, if you stopped our season right after the SEC tournament, I think we became a dangerous group because we were cornered. Are we going to make the tournament? And if we do, we have to be a lot better than we've played at the very end of our year. So we went about it in a really different way, John. We went
Yep.
back to like the hardest practices you can have,
Hmm.
going back to as if this is October, And if given the opportunity about the tournament, to be in the tournament, we were going to be at our very, very best. And our way of doing it is we really went to work in a big way. That benefited us a great deal because when we showed up to that tournament, we had an edge and we did what a lot of teams would like to do. It's hard to do, and that is we played our very, very best in March. We did. So the results of getting to the Sweet 16 and really being a play away from being in a regional final in the Elite Eight, it gave our program a lot of momentum. It gave, I think, a lot of people here, including our own players, a lot of confidence moving forward. And what I hope it's a reflection point of like it set the tone for better and bigger things moving forward here at the University of Texas.
Well, you touched on it. You were a play away from playing in the Elite Eight, and Trey Kaufman-Renn, who had a great career at Purdue, his tip-in won the game for Purdue. As a coach, do you look back and say, you know what, we had a great year. We finished in the Sweet 16. We had a great run at the end of the season. Or do you say, you know what, if we had a block out and an extra bucket, we might have played in the Elite Eight with a chance to go to the Final Four?
You know, the last part of your question, I think it's hard to reflect on, you know, if we just did this one thing, we could have won because you take for granted the things you did to be in that position. You know, we had a couple amazing plays to be in the position to win that game, right? We had two players, one who was playing on a broken foot, Jordan Pope, and one who, you know, Tremont Mark, he's out for like the next 4 months right now, John, from that
Yeah.
ankle injury that he had in that game. So two of your starting five players would have not been available in the regional final if we would have won. And just it was remarkable the courage and the unselfishness that those two kids showed. You know, in the world of NIL, and I think sometimes fans and people can get disgruntled where it's just about money.
Right.
There are two guys that gave a great example of how much it means to play and be a part of a team, to be a part of a university that you love. I mean, in that they had nothing to gain. They did have something to gain from the perspective of winning, but like they both, I'm telling you, 90% of people in their position would not have finished the game or played in the game. Both did, and I think that's a true testament to, number one, why we had the run we did because of their leadership. But I think, again, when you move forward in a good way, knowing that a culture was created where both guys wanted to keep playing under amazing duress.
Sean, what was it like for you to see Arizona advance to the Final Four?
You know, for me, I would have been no different than you with that. I have no bitterness. I lived there for 13 years. The one thing I feel like I'm in this compartment, I always respect people that do a great job in the game of basketball, player, coach, whatever. And the job that Tommy Lloyd has done in Arizona is nothing short of incredible. And just to watch their team from start to finish, they deserve to be there. It was great to see them get there. It's been a long time. Do I wish a couple of the times where we were a play away in an Elite Eight that we would have got there? Yes, but that doesn't take away at all from me hoping that they do well. I've coached too many players, had so many great moments, friendships, relationships, which includes my three sons who graduated from there, to feel anything other than joy for their success. And I mean that in a heartfelt way.
You know, Sean, after Arizona beat Purdue in the Elite Eight, Tommy Lloyd got on the mic and he obviously gave a salute to the Arizona fans, but he also deflected a lot of the attention and said, you know, this isn't just about me. It's about people like Lute Olson and about people like Sean Miller. What was it like to hear him say something like that at such a proud moment for a program where you had incredible on-court success?
Well, I appreciate him even thinking that way or saying that way. Obviously, Lute Olson speaks for himself because I came in right at the end of his long Hall of Fame tenure. But you know, one again, you learn over time. The great players they define a program. You know, here at Texas, you know, when you think of the University of Texas, you know, you think of LaMarcus Aldridge, you think of Kevin Durant, you think of TJ Ford. You keep coming back to if you create an environment for really talented young people and they achieve and they reach goals, that's really what this is about. And I think that to your point about Arizona, watching young people come into that program and go on to do great things, which includes winning as a team, but also what they do when they leave that place. I think we all share in that joy. When I was the coach there, Jason Terry, Damon Stoudemire, Joseph Blair, they were part of my staff. They
Right.
worked with me and they played for Coach Olson. But that becomes what this is all about. It's so much about how much you care about them, how you treat them, what they accomplish, and how they feel when they think about the program you're a part of. And I think that's what makes all of us as coaches keep coming back.
Well, Arizona was one of 4 teams that advanced to the Final Four in 2026, and I know that you and a lot of people in Austin are hoping that Texas can be one of the 4 teams that advance to the Final Four in 2027. Your initial impressions of the team you're about to coach is what?
I've never been more excited to coach a team than the one that we're getting ready to coach. We've already started, obviously, but the journey of the fall semester beginning and football season starting it all off, and then us, getting into our real practices, non-conference play, et cetera. That's the journey that I'm talking about. But I've been incredibly impressed with our group from two points. One, you never know until they're all here, especially with as many new faces as we have, how much they love the game. We try in our recruiting process to make that the most important thing. How much do they love it, and how do you track that? How do you get feedback? How do you genuinely know that they love the game? They can't live without it. It's super important in their life. And we've got that right, because when you get a group that's like that, you can push them. They're in the gym. They love to compete. They look forward to practice. When it gets difficult, it's easier for them to fight through. And we have a collection of guys who love the game. That won't change all the way through to the last game of the year. I know that about them. And I think the second part of it is, when you have as many new faces as we have, is the team success part important to them? And
Right.
during the summer months, I think it's become really apparent to us that all of these guys that we have, of course, they would love to achieve individually, but I think there's a strong recognition that we want to come together to do something special as a team at the University of Texas. Because one thing about the game of basketball, with team success comes all of the individual accolades that everybody chases. And I think that's on the top of our list right now, of just having that team success so that we all can achieve the different things that we want to. So I'm excited about it. Depth, talent, obviously, I feel good about where we're at there. But those two things that I talked about, John, we've had no issues when it comes to guys being on time, guys, not being able to fight through the tough parts of the summer. And I think that's the most exciting part for me.
And one player who had a great deal of team success last year in the NCAA tournament is Mattis Titus, who was a 16-9 guy for you guys in March Madness. He is really the only player of significance that is back for Texas. Does the lack of continuity for Texas entering next season raise any concerns for you as a head coach?
It does. That's never a good thing. Like we don't aspire to have that in place
Right.
every year. But I think when you've only been here for 16 months as a coaching staff, you're going to experience some change. We
Hmm.
did a year ago, and certainly we did, going into our second year. A lot of it is healthy, but so that's why I think the months of November and December are so important for our team, because we have to grow and develop, and we'll have a high ceiling of being able to grow and develop and improve, simply because we're not as familiar with each other as some of the elite teams. Playing Purdue last year, I can only imagine what the months of September and October would have looked like for them, because of their tremendous continuity of players playing in the program together for multiple years. When you don't have that, your approach has to be different. And I think you see that in how we schedule. I think you see that, how we approach the summer, knowing that the goal is to be at our very, very best in March. And obviously, for us to be at our best in March, you have to have success along the way. But my hope is with each passing month, you'll see our team really improve. And if we're healthy, I have no doubt that will happen.
And, I reference Mattis Vukatitis, but I also think that getting David Punch from TCU doesn't just add an all SEC caliber player, but it also gives you a chance to have one of the best 4 or 5 combinations in college basketball next year. Other than David Punch, which newcomers for Texas will have the biggest impact in 26-27?
Well, I love the group that we have. It's hard for me to really single any of them out, even David, simply because, I don't look at us as like missing on really the guys that we brought in. I think who they are, what we talked about them having here, the role, etc. We're really on point. I think the balance and the depth stand out in our summer workouts where if you watch Mikey Lewis on a given day, you can make the argument that he was the best player in the gym. Ditto for Isaiah Johnson or David Punch, Amari Evans, Elijah Freeman. Elijah, there's been times where he can make plays in a practice where nobody else in the gym can make it but him. He's really talented. So the depth of our team is one of our strengths. And I think the depth of that group that we put together in the spring, it really has stood out thus far.
And people from the periphery are going to immediately look at Marcus Spears Jr., who was the top player in the 2027 class and reclassified to 2026 as the person that people want to look at and project in terms of his impact, not just at Texas, but beyond Texas. If there was one player, past or present, that you could most compare Marcus Spears Jr. to, who would it be?
The 2 freshmen that I coached that were outstanding were Lauri Markkanen and there's quite a few of them, right? But
Yeah.
So I'll rephrase that. 2 that he reminds me of, Aaron Gordon and Lauri Markkanen, from the perspective of, I thought that the quality that both of those guys had that really helped them achieve as freshmen is they had an amazing maturity. Even though their age is 18, 19, they never conducted or carried themselves as if they didn't know what to do or they were new to all of this. And Marcus reminds me so much of those 2 guys in terms of his approach. It's businesslike. He knows what he's trying to accomplish. He knows that it's difficult. He works at it. He cares. He's bright. He's a fun guy to coach because he wants to learn. And those 2 guys really had that same quality. And I thought it really allowed them to grow throughout that year. Difference between Marcus and both of those guys is that, Marcus is a full year and a half younger. So because of that, I think we all owe him the grace of this is a year where he's definitely going to get better and grow and develop and learn. You can't always judge him on just his actual performance, especially early in the months of November and December. But I believe that he will get better as the year goes on. And there's not a doubt in my mind, John, that like this isn't just a developmental situation for him
Right.
this year. He's going to really help our team and impact winning. He's already shown that in the few weeks that he's been with us this summer. And I'm not underestimating the power of the fact that he's been with us this summer. He hasn't been with us the entire summer, but just to be here and get to know his teammates and learn our system and be here for these final 4 or 5 weeks of our summer, it's really going to work out to his advantage.
And he'll be showcased during your non-conference schedule, which includes games in Texas against Miami and Baylor. You're also going to play at Louisville in the ACC SEC Challenge. You have Memphis at home. You have Georgetown, an event in San Diego, which could potentially lead to another matchup with you against UCLA, which would be interesting because it would be the 3rd time you've faced UCLA at a different school.
Yeah.
Xavier, obviously Arizona, and UCLA. And then I believe there's a dress rehearsal in late October penciled in against St. John's at the world's most famous arena in the greatest city in the world. How big is it, Sean, if that's still the plan, to play an opponent like St. John's in an exhibition game on the cusp of the season to get you ready for what's ahead?
Well, the world's most famous arena, I'll stamp that times 10. There's no place like the Garden. The world's best city, the America's best city, which you talked about, you can make a strong argument for Austin, Texas there. You haven't been
Yeah.
here enough to really be able to compare. All right.
Okay. We'll see in
Um,
September if that's even in the top 5 or 10, but keep going.
but in terms of going against Coach Pitino, there's nobody that I admire more or have more respect for as a coach, as somebody that's given his life to this game than him. Coaching against him most recently when I was in the Big East, you just are always reminded how different it is to play against his teams. Their effort level, their toughness, their full court pressure, their physicality and execution. It's sink or swim when you play them. And I don't think I could put our team with some of the things that you've asked me on this call here. I can't put our team in a better position to prepare for what's to come than taking them on that journey to New York City, playing in the Garden against Coach Pitino and St. John's. I know that when we leave that, we will be better. We will have learned a lot more, and we'll be more prepared for November than any other test that I think we can give them. So I'm actually very grateful that we could play them, and I'm looking forward to visiting, and I'm looking forward to that game.
Yeah, me too. That will be a great appetizer to get prior to the start of the season. Sean, I'm always thinking about how things are going to unfold when you look at college basketball from 30,000 feet. We have now a 76 team NCAA tournament, which means with the new Pac 12 starting up, there's going to be 32 at automatic qualifiers, and there's going to be 44 at large bids. So in my head, I'm always thinking about, well, where are those bids going to come from? And even if every one of the Power Four conferences got 10 bids, there would still be room for an additional 8 at large bids. I'm looking at things now, and I think in this new model, a dozen teams from the SEC have an excellent chance annually to be in the NCAA tournament. With a 76 team bracket, is a dozen the sweet spot for a league that in the last 2 years has had a combined 24 bids?
I'm sure you're right. I don't even have to campaign for the SEC. It's the coaching, the talent, the depth of the 16 teams. It's the best of the best, man. It's iron sharpens iron at every turn, coach to coach, player to player, team to team. Where I think that people haven't studied the NCAA tournament moving forward enough is what the early rounds will be like. I think that one of the many things that captivates the world when it comes to March Madness is the unpredictability, the parity, and what can happen uh, in terms of upsets, the Cinderella stories of the past. But when you put in these teams, what I see very different is you could be a 4 seed, which means you're one of the top 16 teams in America. And to your earlier point, John, if you're a 4 seed, you've had an amazing year from start to
Yep.
finish. But the vulnerability in round one for you is going to be unlike anything you've ever felt before. 4-13, 5-12, 6-11, because you're going to have more teams. And I'll use one as an example. If Oklahoma from the SEC would have got a bid a year ago,
Right.
you would have played them early in the NCAA tournament. You were playing a team that was playing at its very best, led by like two explosive guards in a style that's very difficult. Just using them as the example,
Well,
it wouldn't feel like how maybe that game would have felt like a decade ago. So I think that the vulnerability of the top seeds in the tournament, it'll be at an unprecedented nature. And I guess if I had a crystal ball, I would say that this new model would make something that's already incredibly special even more special because it's going to be chaos. I feel that way because there's so many good players. There's so many good older and experienced players that are out there, and it's going to allow coaches and teams that were right on the brink of getting in, entering with the chip on their shoulder like we would have a year ago. And that's a dangerous combination in the early rounds to face. So, college basketball, I know it's in a state of flux in a lot of ways, but there's nothing like March Madness. And I think it'll only get better as we move forward. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And look, you have to work to be a part of it.
You definitely do. Well, let's wrap on this. What are the biggest keys for Texas to win a couple more games in 2027 than in 2026 and potentially being an Elite Eight or a Final Four?
Well, I'm going to start with this. You have to be healthy. There are just too many teams over the years, and I've coached a couple of them that when one key player goes down either at the wrong time or misses a stretch of the season, it's easy to forget unless you're the coach because you deep down know that you're not what you were supposed to be. That happens, and it's unfortunate. You have to have great health. And then I think the second part is like guys have to really buy into being a part of something that's bigger than just their own goals. And I hit on that earlier. I feel like we have a great opportunity to be that type of team because of who we have. But it's easy to say that in July and August, much more difficult to be able to say that in February. Only 5 guys can start. Every team has a leading scorer. We all have 200 minutes we have to give out. Sacrifice is a big part of this. And usually I think the teams that get to the end that are playing their best, they embrace roles. And like our group a year ago, you're playing for a cause, something that's just bigger than yourself. So my hope is to be able to continue to develop that culture and have that in place and be blessed with great health. And I believe that if we have those things, that we're one of those teams that can do it.
Well, Sean, it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. Appreciate a couple minutes. Know how busy you are. Have a great rest of your summer. And as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
John, Sammy's restaurant, I know it doesn't sound like an Italian restaurant. I'll put it up against any, even some of the great ones you have in New York City. You got to come to Austin to experience
Uh,
the food scene. It's not
Austin.
underrated. It's
Yeah.
only underrated to a guy from New York who's not respecting this place enough. When you talk about the restaurants of all types, it might be the best in the country. I
All right.
mean that,
Well, oh,
even
oh,
over than New York City.
okay. Austin is penciled in on my preseason tour, but we'll see if Sammy lives up to hype, either pre-practice or post-practice one day. But appreciate a couple minutes, man. Enjoyed chatting about your team.
Oh, as always, it's awesome to be on with you with your preparation and just how much you love college basketball.
All right, that's Texas head coach Sean Miller. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.